we are live. Hello and welcome everyone to our third live stream for the Empowerment Podium. So for those of you returning, welcome back. And for those of you who are new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you guys are joining us today. Here we're working to build a community of empowered individuals through storytelling. So we hope that you'll continue to come away from this a little bit more knowledgeable and empowered than before. Just for a little housekeeping before we kick things off today. As today's storyteller is telling her story, please feel free to submit any questions you have in the chat. And we're going to be going through those during the Q&A to follow this story. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Josie up. And I would like to present today's speaker, Joselyn Mullen. Joselyn holds a bachelor's degree in marketing with a minor in international business from Penn State University and a master's degree in business administration from Penn State University. Joselyn is also a registered representative and holds a chartered retirement planning counselor designation and insurance license. Outside of work, she enjoys swimming, rollerblading, volunteering, jump roping, and she also loves to travel. And from what I've observed, she's also a very gifted storyteller. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Joselyn.
Thank you so much, Kay, and thanks for the opportunity to be part of this amazing organization and group of people. So I'll start my story by saying December 9th, 2010, the day my life went up in flames. It started off like a normal morning. I'd stayed over at a friend's house the night before. When I woke up around 7 a.m., I took a look at my phone. I received a message from my neighbor. She had sent it around 1:30 in the morning. The message simply said, if you're in the apartment building, you need to get out. There's a fire in there. I looked at my phone many times and reread the message, and I was so confused. What was she talking about? Was this some kind of joke? But I didn't have time to respond or clarify for more information. I had to get home as quickly as possible and figure out what was going on. So I started the 20-minute drive back to my apartment building. There was a knot in my stomach that continued to grow the closer I got to my home. About 5 blocks away from my apartment building, I passed by a fire truck. Sure enough, my worst fears were realized when I came home to an absolutely devastating scene. A 3-story building, now reduced to 2 stories. There were ashes, appliances, burnt furniture, and just general chaos and ruin everywhere I looked. I knew in that moment that I had lost everything. I had never felt so defeated in my entire life. Questions started to come through my head. Where was I going to live? Would I have any material possessions to remind me of my childhood and young adult life? At 26 years old, my life was starting to have direction, both professionally and personally. And I wondered if I would ever be able to get back on track to where I had been. I soon learned that the fire had started when my neighbor put his clothes to dry on his space heater. The clothes quickly caught fire along with the rest of the building. My other neighbor, who lived on the 3rd floor, woke up surrounded by flames. But rather than choosing to get out of the building as quickly as possible and save herself, she instead courageously knocked on the doors frantically of every person that was living in the apartment building, letting them know that there was a fire inside and they needed to get out as quickly as possible. From there, she ran down the street without any shoes on to the local bar, the only place that was open, to call for help. She saved the lives of every person in the building that night, along with the further destruction of the building itself. She is truly a hero. Well, nobody died that night. There was many medical injuries and a lot of emotional trauma, as well as millions of dollars of destruction. My neighbor Chris ended up having to be airlifted to Temple Hospital, eventually having skin graft surgery. My neighbor June jumped from her 3rd-story window to save herself from the fire and broke many bones. One of the firefighters who was courageously fighting the fire on the roof of the building fell off on that icy morning and broke both of his legs. I started to panic and cry and think about how I was going to rebuild my life after this mess. I knew that the journey to rebuild would be long and emotional, and I wasn't sure that I had the strength in the present moment. But looking back nearly 10 years later, I realized that I've been profoundly impacted as a result of the events of the fire and the aftermath. Not all fires come to destroy, some come to make way for new life. Today, I'd like to discuss 3 lessons that I learned while rising up from the ashes. The first lesson is that unexpected events happen, and it's important to be prepared for when the rainy day comes. Prior to the fire, I was not in a financial situation to be prepared for the unexpected. Warren Buffett is quoted as saying, when the tide goes out, you can tell who's been skinny dipping. And I have been skinny dipping. There's a statistic that says 40% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency. I'm embarrassed to say it, but I was part of that group. Not only at the time of the fire did I not have an emergency fund, I also did not have renter's insurance, and I was living paycheck to paycheck. Needless to say, when the fire happened, I was completely unprepared. Luckily, my generous parents bailed me out. But this situation made me realize that the unexpected can and will happen, and I needed to get my financial house in order. The fire was the inspiration for me to start building an emergency fund, getting renter's insurance, and stop living paycheck to paycheck in the years following. But after doing those things for myself, I realized that I wanted to help others with their financial journey, which is why I pursued a career in financial education, a job that I'm really passionate about. I'll never forget meeting with a woman at her workplace. She'd been living paycheck to paycheck a really long time. And when unexpected events came up, she took loans from her 401k or put the money on credit cards with mounting interest and debt. We discussed her situation and different options available to her. I ended up helping her open an emergency fund with a direct deposit from her paycheck. I'll never forget seeing her a few years later in the cafeteria. She said to me, I thought of you the other day. My refrigerator broke, and I had the money in my emergency fund to buy a new one. In a small way, I feel that I can pay this lesson forward through my current work. The second lesson I learned is that detours in life can and will happen. Prior to the fire, my 3 best friends and I were planning to go back to school to get our MBAs. It was something that we all wanted to do together. I had enrolled in a program and was planning to start in January of 2011. But when the fire happened, it destroyed not only my books, but also my confidence to start a program while at the same time trying to rebuild my life. So I contacted the school, let them know my situation, and let them know I wouldn't be able to start in January as I previously planned. My 3 best friends did start, and I have to admit I was a little envious watching them take this next step in their career pursuits and education, and I was stuck behind just trying to rebuild the basics of my life. But I pushed that thought aside and told myself that this situation was out of my control and I needed to accept it. But 2 years later, I was feeling really good, like my life was getting back on track. So I contacted Penn State and I asked if I could enroll in the program again. I was able to start that following semester. During a class on social entrepreneurship, I created a business plan for an organization that would help fire victims get back on their feet. I was in a unique situation to understand the unmet need, and that thought still inspires me today. I'm proud to say in August of 2016, I did graduate with my MBA, much later than my friends and much later than my original timeline. But this situation made me realize that detours in life can and will happen, but if it's important, you will eventually reach your destination. The third lesson I learned is that the most important things in life aren't things. When the fire happened, I lost everything. But with that, all the material clutter and distraction was taken away as well. And I was able to fully understand and appreciate everything that I had. I had a family that supported me in my absolute darkest moments, both emotionally and financially. Friends that rallied around me and cheered me on as I worked to rebuild my life. A community that came together to help my neighbors and I get back on our feet. And most importantly, I had my faith and my hope for the future. About a month after my fire, I was surprised by a fire shower. Concerned family members and friends who came together to lift my spirits and give me special gifts to help replace all the items that I lost. The irony of the situation was that when I lost everything, it became abundantly clear to me that I already had everything. I could just see it so much more clearly, when all the material clutter and distraction was taken away. When I got this opportunity to be able to be part of the Empowerment Podium, I can't tell you how excited I was. This story had been on my heart on a long time to share on a larger scale, as it's had such a profound impact on my life and my perspective. But as the date started approaching, I have to admit, I started to get a little nervous. I started to think, this story is really personal. Should I be sharing with a bunch of people I've never met before that at one point in my life, I didn't have an emergency fund or renter's insurance and I was living paycheck to paycheck? But when I thought that initial thought, I immediately put it to rest because I realized that this talk and this speech today is not for me. This is for someone who's in the fire right now. Maybe the loss of a loved one, devastating medical diagnosis, not getting that job you thought you were shoo-in for, a breakup, or like me, you lost everything and you're not sure you have the strength to go on the long and emotional journey of rebuilding your life. Then you may see the ashes of your life scattered around you in a chaotic and nightmarish mess. Just remember that you too can rise up from the ashes of defeat, devastation, and loss to experience new life more beautifully and abundantly than ever before. Thank you.
That was awesome. Big round of applause for you, Josie. That was an incredible story.
Thank you.
I think that your first 4 lessons are extremely important, that unexpected events happen and it's important to prepare for when that rainy day comes, that detours can and will happen in life, that the more important things in life aren't actually things, and that hope rises like a phoenix from the ashes of shattered dreams. I really like that visual, and I think those are completely right and really good lessons to take away with us. And when you said that not all fires come to destroy, that some come to make way for new life, I think that really resonated with me, and that's a great way of putting it.
Thank you.
So I just want to hop right into the Q&A portion. So if you're ready to go, we'll hop right into that. Got some questions here. So to kick it off, what advice would you give to someone who's in the fire right now?
First, I would want to say that my heart goes out to you. If you're in the fire or you're at some point will be in the fire, it's not a fun place to be. It was really difficult for me during the time that this event happened to me. So I just want to express that I know how difficult it is, and I certainly have sympathy for those who are in the fire. My advice would be to stay strong and have courage, and also just to not be so hard on yourself, to take things one day at a time. I can't tell you how much I appreciated that during this time in the aftermath of the fire. I didn't put pressure on myself to get a million things done and be perfect with every single aspect of my life. I gave myself grace during that period of time. And that's what I'd encourage you to do as well. Just take it one day at a time, get through one day, move on to the next one, and just keep looking forward, not looking back, because things will get better. And like myself, you may even realize that good things ultimately come out of a devastating or bad situation.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. Focus on what you can control in the moment. Okay, here's our second question. So in your talk, you talk about a devastating situation and how it turned into an empowering story. Has this situation changed your perspective when you encounter other difficult moments in your life?
It certainly has. I would say for me, this situation has really given me the opportunity to realize that there is purpose in tough things that happen in your life. There is a plan for difficult things that happen in your life. So I try to look at difficult situations moving forward as an opportunity to grow my character as well as my perspective. Yeah. Because this situation with the fire certainly has, and it took some time to see all of the blessings that came from it, but I certainly was able to realize that throughout the years.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great that you could take such a big positive out of such a negative situation. All right, so we have one more. So you mentioned the irony that you realized in the aftermath of the fire. So you said, when I lost everything, I realized I already had everything, and I could just see it. I could just see it so much more clearly when all the material distraction and clutter was taken away. So how did focusing on gratitude and what you still had help during that difficult time?
Gratitude completely changed my perspective during this difficult situation.
Mm-hmm.
I can't express that enough. At the beginning, it was so easy to just focus on everything that I lost, how devastating it was, how was I going to be able to recover, what the next steps for me were going to look like. I felt like it was such a setback in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in this whirlwind of negativity.
Yeah.
But at one point, I started to realize, gosh, my family and friends, they've been here for me this whole time. My community, my colleagues, my faith was there all along. I could see those things so much more clearly. So by focusing on what I had rather than what I didn't have, it was actually able to give me closure on the situation. And because of that, I was able to move forward. So I think gratitude was everything in this difficult situation. And I'm glad I changed my perspective from a negative one to a positive one.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. Very admirable. Focus on gratitude. All right, so I think that is all the questions that we have for you today. So I believe that concludes our talk for today. And I just want to give another huge thank you to you, Josie, for joining us today and sharing your story. It takes a lot of guts to do that, and I think you truly spoke so openly, and I know I'm coming away with some very important life lessons. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks for the opportunity. It's been such a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right. And before everyone goes, just a couple quick shout outs. So if you want to share your story, just like Josie did, let me know. Email us at empowermentpodium@gmail.com or message us on our socials. We have an Instagram and a Facebook, both of which you can find by searching at Empowerment Podium. So give us a follow there to stay up to date on when we will be going live next. And if you like this stream, please like this video, subscribe to this channel. You can also hit the notification bell to receive a notification every time we post a new video or live stream. But otherwise, thank you all again for tuning in, and we'll see you again for our next story. All right, bye guys.